I'd never been in Milwaukee and played. I'd never been, and to see a theatre of a few thousand people coming to hear essentially a lecture. Although a friend of mine said you can't call it a lecture at these prices, so it's a show. But yes,
that's incredible.
It is amazing, but it feels like that hasn't really been done before.
No, I think it really hasn't, and we're off to Hong Kong on Sunday to carry on, so it's a world tour. But ultimately, it's asking deep questions about not only the size and scale of the universe, but what it means, what it means to be human, and what it means to live. Well, it's getting too heavy at this point. What it means to live.
Slow down, Brian. We've got all the time.
What it means to live late at night when you've had a few.
A deeply meaningful life in a meaningless universe. That's what I talk about, essentially.
Wow.
There we are.
We'll get to that.
We definitely will get to that, 100%.
We certainly will. And Millie, I mean, you're over in the States now, your family's over there too, but you've managed to hang on to a good bit of your British accent as well.
Thank you. Yes, I mean, when I'm back at home, that's weird to say, I kind of live everywhere, and when I'm back home here, when I'm with my family, I even said today in an interview, I said, I thought... And I was like, I thought...
But it's obviously quite important to you then, just to keep...
Yeah, it's important to me to maintain where I grew up. I mean, this is where I've lived half my life, and half my life has been in the US. So when I'm around an American person, I go right into it. I'm like, oh my God, hi, I'm Millie. Nice to meet you, blah, blah, blah. And then right here, I'm like, all right. Can I get some water?
It's handy though, living over there at 15, because you've now got your provisional driving licence, haven't you?
Yes. Yeah, I just took the test.
Have you tried driving on this side of the road?
It's illegal, and and I obey the law. Okay. And so with me, especially when I'm back home in the US, it's illegal. It's legal there. Yeah. So I'm driving around, and I was saying today that the speed limit's 35, and as soon as I go 36, I'm like, what? I'm really careful.
Good. Yeah.
I'm very good. And I am a bit loud when somebody makes a mistake.
Yeah.
I'm like
a bit road ragey.
Yeah. Actually, you should be like Brian and get chauffeured around, because he used to get chauffeured around in the 80s. We might have a picture of you actually stood by the back of one of your limos. Have we got this?
One of my limos.
Maybe not.
I mean, it will be hard to focus on the car, I think.
Which one? You're that one on the left, are you there?
That is 80s hair, isn't it? You would agree that I could slot into Stranger Things.
I have to say, you totally could.
Yes, definitely.
I'm not looking at the car at all. The hair is mind-blowing.
We'll get to Stranger Things a little bit later on, if you don't mind.
Coming up. Now, a little bit later, Brian will be blowing our minds with astonishing facts about our solar system, like this little gem. On Mercury, there are 2 years in every day.
Don't overthink it. Don't overthink it. We'll move through it. And we're also going to be talking to Millie about her blockbuster debut in Godzilla. That's the reason why you're here tonight. But as Marty now explains, sometimes the earth beneath our feet can be just as destructive as any giant lizard.
Sinkholes make the news just a few times a year, but experts say there are many more of them. The trigger can be natural, when rainwater erodes a highly soluble rock, or man-made, perhaps because of long-forgotten mines. When you're caught up in them, they're scary. People here in Hertfordshire will vouch for that. Overnight, a sinkhole 35 feet wide appeared on this estate in Hemel Hempstead, part of it right under a house. Every resident was told to leave, and quickly.
I didn't get time to grab anything, not even my purse or clothes. We just had to get out.
There was this house which was demolished and rebuilt in a period of between 18 to 24 months. And as you can see, ironically, it was just sold.
And where was the hole itself?
The sinkhole was here, where we're standing today. There was lots of panic, crying. You don't expect to see 24 police officers roaming around your cul-de-sac.
You must have been worried as well. A hole has just opened up at the end of your street.
Is the ground under my house safe? It took us 9 months to get back.
The problem here was man-made. Around the country are abandoned chalk mines, some dating back to medieval days. Chalk was needed for brick making, but heavy rainfall enlarges the cavities and the ground crashes down. I thought I'd show Martin's children what happened. OK, so this is it. This is what happened outside your house when you had a sinkhole. So imagine this is the ground underneath you right here. And we're stood sort of about here in the corner. And underneath us here is chalk. Yeah? Although, to be honest, this is sugar rather than chalk, because, yeah.
Sweet.
Sweet, exactly. And what we're going to do is I'm going to put a car in here. And now the key to sinkholes is always water. Usually lots and lots of it from sort of heavy rain. And what happens is the heavy rain comes down and it starts to dissolve the rock underneath us. Normally think of it as being completely solid, and we can do that. We've got some water here, and all I have to do is pour the water on, and, well, we'll see what happens. Here we go.
Whoa!
The next door town of St Albans came up with an all-time monster in 2015. It took 50 lorry loads of foamed concrete to fill it. Tom Backhouse is a specialist on ground stability. Hello, Tom. Nice to meet you. So, tell me, are we getting more sinkholes these days?
We appear to be getting more. Climate change, increased rainfall, wetter winters, they seem to be occurring more and more at the moment.
And what's the sort of worst-case scenario?
Worst-case scenario is actually what happened here. We're stood in the middle of one, and as you can see from this, how large it was.
It's massive.
Yeah, it is big.
And I guess the insurers aren't particularly happy either.
No, they're not. They're really starting to feel the pinch now. The environmental hazard, subsidence, sinkholes, flooding is really starting to cause them to lose a lot of money.
But what about sinkholes caused not by humans, but by nature? You'll find them in a town that's had quite a few, Ripon in Yorkshire. The area doesn't stand on chalk mines, but on gypsum, a highly soluble rock, and this is the result. Tom says he has a new way to find out where sinkholes will occur, and says Ripon is a good place to start.
We can use satellite data and geospatial data. It's all emerging technology from Earth observation and from space.
Wow, so each of these little red triangles is a sinkhole?
Yeah, absolutely. And we're zooming in here on Ripon.
So all these sort of pinky, yellowy splodges, that's actual movement in the ground?
Yeah, absolutely. So the satellite's capturing downward movement, and potentially a sinkhole could open up.
So presumably planners and developers can now get hold of this information and not build houses on top of sinkholes?
Absolutely, yeah. So we're trying to make them aware of where potential sinkholes could open up. The vast majority of sinkholes are in rural areas, so the threat to them is pretty small.
Sinkholes that cause issues are shocking, but fortunately very rare. 99% of all sinkholes will happen out there in the countryside, and no one will ever know about them.
Well, we were looking at some massive halls earlier on today, weren't we? First thing, we went to the cinema to watch Godzilla, and it was, I tell you what, it was one way to wake up. Godzilla, new movie that Millie is starring in. Now, the very first Godzilla's hit the big screens about 50 years before you were born.
Yes.
Millie, how much did you know about Godzilla before you took part in this?
It's just your... well, I didn't know much about Godzilla before assigning myself to the role, because I think my character isn't very knowledgeable of the planet and what these titans mean to the planet.
Yes.
So for me...
these titans are kind of these big old monsters that are almost
titans,
like dormant, and then everything gets woken up to... Yeah.
They're not extraterrestrial, but they look it, but they're meant to be on Earth. They're defending our Earth, or what we think is. So there's, in this movie, you've got Mothra, who is this the most beautiful thing ever. And then she's the only girl, and then you've got...
she's like a giant caterpillar, kind of.
Kind of.
Beautiful moth.
Defending the planet.
Yeah. And then you have...
Scarier than she sounds.
Yeah. And then Rodan, Ghidorah, and Godzilla, of course.
Yeah.
And for me, assigning myself to a project that just has such a long legacy, something that means so much to so many people, I had to.
This is the... I mean, do you remember... We were talking earlier about Godzilla and Godzuki.
Yeah.
Do you remember that cartoon series earlier on? And what do you remember of Godzilla? How long ago?
Yeah, when was
Oh, gosh, when we were small. About 20 years ago.
80s, probably, right?
Yeah.
Because the answer to your question is I don't remember very much, but I just remember it.
Godzilla and Godzuki.
Yeah, but you remember with Godzilla movies, you think of this kind of clay monster, don't you? The stop frame animation.
Yeah.
And you're right, now it's quite astonishing.
Well, I mean, the first movie that was in production in Japan, which was actually just a man in a 210-pound suit.
Yes.
And so for us, like, this movie, it represents Godzilla in the most magnificent way. It's the biggest we've ever seen him. It's the craziest. The CGI is on point.
It's the loudest.
It's very loud.
Yeah. And I mean, things have moved on quite considerably. We're going to see the fire-breathing Ghidorah here.
Oh, yeah.
Little ones, get behind the couch. This is a bit scary.
Out now from behind the sofa. The CGI, the special effects in this are incredible. I mean, how did you feel when you because obviously those creatures are computer generated and what have you, so how much of a concept did you have of what you were actually acting in front of?
Well, everything is there minus the monsters. So we really do have every physical aspect of the rain, the fire, the noise. I mean, we had booming, loud speakers on set that just played these roars.
Right.
Michael Doherty, our amazing director, he played music for us. He inspired us with, you know, pre-visual animations of the movie. So for us, we didn't really need the monsters there because we had everything else there.
So he's in your ear essentially going, now I'm up here, I'm attacking, or telling you what would be playing out.
Michael has to focus on every aspect of this movie. I mean, not only us, like literally the tennis ball that's pretending to be an eyeball of the Titan, but our first AD, Cliff Lanning, who literally narrated the whole movie for us. On set, he would be like, and Ghidorah smashes into you! And he runs up to you, and he's got the poshest English accent, so it did not sound right. But we loved him, and it really helped us along the way. So both Michael and Cliff, they collaborated on making this the most realistic current event that was happening.
And your reaction then when you actually saw, when you went to the screening
Very
and saw
realistic.
everything straight
Oh
away
yeah,
in front
no,
of you.
it was, yeah.
And so to get in the zone, you listened to Beyonce quite a lot on set.
Well, I wanted to motivate myself into thinking that this was really happening to me.
Okay.
And I needed like loud music, and for me, like, we had the roars and we had all these music that was really inspirational and great and, you know, make sure pulse quicken. But for me, I needed some Beyonce because she has a loud voice and she has, is that the world?
Yes, that's why
is the
Brian
word.
say it.
Okay, that's really small.
It's so
It's not scale. It's not to
No,
scale.
no, no. But like, it's smaller than what everything else. I can't
Well,
get
it is.
started.
It's one of the smallest
I
objects
shouldn't
in the
get him
solar system.
started. And then he's
You'll
going
have
to
to-
ramble.
he'll
But anyway,
charge you.
Beyonce's great.
Don't start him off yet.
Is that right? Is that the world? But yeah, no, Beyonce was really like. Sorry,
worry.
Something's wrong up here. So Beyonce was just like
Getting you it, like her alter ego, Sasha Fierce. You know, got
Madison.
Your,
Yeah.
Madison, love it.
OK, we can move on to the Earth very, very shortly. Before that, we will tell you that Godzilla, King of the Monsters, is in cinemas from tomorrow.
I don't know what's going on. Yesterday, we saw how the UK's best-known transplant hospital had outgrown its old site.
Well, it's time to catch up with how that big old move went.